it's day 3 of our sew along. Thank you so much for joining me on this Carolina Herrera inspiration look. Today is all about that skirt, and boy, that skirt is one of my favorite parts of this dress. I love the fullness of it. I even like the length, which is a little weird because I am not a midi length type person, but for this look, I'm totally going with it. And I really love those pockets. Now, the best part of today's sew along is those pockets because they are so much easier than I was expecting. I was really thinking I was going to have to do a true welt pocket. And if you've ever made a true welt pocket, you know it's a little bit tough to really nail it, to really make it look clean and sharp and crisp on those corners and when you flip the pocket in. And so I was super excited when I learned how this pattern that I am sewing, which again is Simplicity 2996, which, sorry, it's an out of print pattern, it's older, but if you can find it or pick it up, definitely, I totally recommend it. I was super excited with the way that they do these welt pockets. It's so easy and it's not at all like a true welt pocket. And I think it looks spot on to the inspiration dress. So without further ado, let's get started on day 3 sew along the skirt. Welcome to day 3 of our sew along. We are working on our Carolina Herrera inspiration dress that Meghan Markle wore. And today is skirt day. So we are going to break out pattern Simplicity 2996. You should have already cut your pattern pieces for the skirt C and the welt pocket for view A. In addition to cutting out all your pattern pieces, you want to go ahead and apply your interfacing to your welt pieces so that that's ready to go. And what I like to do is go ahead and serge around the edges of my pocket pieces so I don't have to do that later in construction. And then also go ahead and transfer all of your markings onto your pattern pieces on the wrong side of the fabric. So once you have all of that completed, you'll have your pattern pieces ready to go. Now you may have noticed we did not cut belt pieces yet. So know that that is coming later, but I haven't figured out that step yet and how I want to do it. So that is why I have not cut the belt pieces yet, but that will be added in as we go along. So we are going to begin by finding our center front skirt piece. So I already kind of have mine pinned down, not pinned down, but weighted down with my fabric weights, which, by the way, aren't they just so cute? Yes, I will link those. Great little buy. And the piece that you want to have in front of you right now is skirt piece 16. So this is the center front of the skirt, and that's where we're going to be attaching our welt pocket. Now, if we were following the pattern instructions, according to this, we would not find that information because this view and this view don't necessarily go together. These are sewn into the same princess seam lines, but these skirts do not have that mentioned anywhere in the pattern. So we're going to follow the directions for A using our skirt pieces. So I went ahead and I tried on my skirt, I pinned it on to my bodice I already made, and I decided where I wanted to place my pockets. And I decided to use a marking that's already on the pattern, which just makes it easy for me. And that is this first little notch that is cut out. I'm going to use that as about my bottom part of my pocket. I think I'm going to go down about an inch from that just so I have a little bit more room between the waist and the pocket, but you could use whatever's easiest for you. Try it on and see what you like for your pattern placement for your pockets. So according to the directions, you're going to need your welt pieces, which you should have already cut out, and the interfacing to already be attached to those welt pieces. Okay, so what they tell you to do is take your welt pocket piece and fold it in half lengthwise with right sides together. So I'm just kind of finger pressing mine down. So we're going to put these right sides together and sew down each side 5/8 of an inch. And then we're going to trim the seams and the corners. So let's go ahead and do that now. Remember to clip those threads as you go, and then you don't have near the clipping at the end of your project. So I'm going to trim my seam allowances down on each side. And I suppose I'm going to clip into my corner slightly there. Now it wants us to go ahead and turn it. Typically you want to use a turner tool. I'm going to grab my pair of tweezers here. Just want to be careful I'm not using something too sharp. And I'm going to take my tweezers and just kind of poke out those corners until I get a nice sharp corner on it, edge. Okay, and then I'm going to take that over and press it really well. Okay, you want to go ahead and repeat that so that you make 2 welts. And what you're going to do now is take one of your welts, and you have this raw edge, okay? And you're going to make that raw edge even with that notch that I told you about on your skirt piece. Maybe I'll do this side so you can see a little bit better. Let me move this over. There we go. So here's my notch, and I'm going to take my welt, and like I said, I'm going to do mine about 1 inch down. So I just grab my ruler and make sure I am 1 inch below that notch and line it up right there. Okay, and then you're going to pin that in place. And then we're going to run a basting stitch over that welt, and we're going to repeat it on the other side of the skirt. And I'm going to do that now and head over to the machine. Okay, so I basted both sides of that welt on. And now it comes time to attach our pockets. If you remember from day 1, I went ahead and prepped my pocket with serging all around the outside, and that's because I was not planning on doing a lining, and I'm still not planning on lining my skirt. So I'm glad that I went ahead and did that. But I'm going to go ahead and take my pockets right now, and with the right sides together, pin front and pocket to side front and pocket at the side front seam. So I'm going to take first on this front piece right over the welt, and I'm going to lay that pocket piece right sides together on top and pin that. Let me do this side so you can see a little bit better. So lay that on top. I'm just kind of evenly spacing over the top and the bottom of that. And I'm going to pin those on. And then using the markings on the pattern, there were 2 large dots that you should have transferred. There are mine. And I'm going to stitch between those 2 large dots with a regular length stitch. After you've stitched your pockets on, they want you to go ahead and press the pockets out. So not the welt, just that pocket like that, and press it out. Go ahead and do that now. Okay, I have my pockets pressed out on the front piece, and now I'm going to repeat this on my side front pieces. So this is the center front. I'm going to place this to the side. My 2 side front pieces. Okay, and you can see in the pattern weights, you can see that these both have that same notch. Well, they would if it was right way. So, gets a little confusing. Make sure that you're looking for those notches. Okay, so I have the same notches. Just to double check it, I'm gonna lay this, make sure everything's looking aligned. All right, so I'm going to center the pockets on here as well, and I'm going to be doing right sides together and 1 inch below my notch. And 1 inch below my notch. Okay, then I want to pin these together. And same thing, use that large dot that you transferred to use a regular stitch to attach your pocket now. Okay, now you want to go ahead and press those to the outside, and then you're going to go ahead and line up your side seams and your pockets. And as long as you measured well, they should all line up. And you're going to go ahead and pin this now. And pin it all the way down on both sides, and then take it over to your machine, and in one continuous stitch you're going to stitch the side seams, stop and start at those large dots, come around, stitch around your pockets, start and stop again, and then come all the way down. And I guess what I mean by start and stop is a little bit of a back stitch. I don't actually mean to stop your machine, take it out, start all over again, because it is one continuous line of stitching all the way down those side seams. So go ahead and do that now to insert your pockets. Okay, so you've now stitched your pockets in, and they should look like this. All right, now comes the fun part. We're going to take our pockets and we're actually going to press them to the inside. So down here on the inside, we're going to press them towards the center, and we're going to press that welt to the outside. Okay, so do you see how it's kind of creating this fun faux little welt, which is why I really loved this pattern, because if you've ever made a real welt pocket, it's much more difficult than this. So we're going to press this really well, and then all we're going to do is top stitch the ends of these welts right on top on the outside. So just right there, we're going to top stitch at them. Okay, our pockets have been pressed to the side, and we're bringing it over to the machine to do our top stitching on the top and bottom. A couple quick tips. I usually do like to set my machine length at slightly longer at 3 for the stitch length when I'm doing any kind of top stitching. And also a little tip, I was out of thread that matches this perfectly, so I do not actually have blue in my machine. I have a very dark gray, and I'll show you in a minute how that is going to look. It's also easier sometimes when you're doing stitching like this to kind of use your hand wheel in the beginning to make sure you get it to start and stop right where you want it. And I'm going to pull my threads through after and knot them in the back. So I'm going to keep these a little bit longer when I'm clipping them. And you can see there's my gray, which hopefully blends in. I think it does, but it's time to move on to the center back of our skirt. Okay, so we have our two center back pieces. This is where the zipper is going to be inserted. This is the outside that we're going to attach to the side pieces. So again, you should have two left of number 17. Your skirt side fronts. So you're going to take the side with the single notch, and you're going to line those up right sides together. Pin down both sides and stitch with your seam allowance. Now for mine, I had to cut my pieces slightly off grain. It is not at all what I wanted to do in the least, but I was working with a limited amount of fabric, and I worked and worked to try to figure out a solution, and couldn't come up with one. So I am a little concerned about my pieces here stretching. So in order to combat that, I'm going to be stabilizing all my seams with a seam, like a twill tape or a seams grate, a stabilizer here, just so that if there's any sort of stretching from a little bit of cutting at an angle on the bias, hopefully it's not going to affect my skirt. And like I said, this is not a mistake that I wanted to make in any sense of the word, but sometimes it's what happens. So, okay, after stitching, and again, you're going to see my seams grate here, which is just stabilizing my seam. And then I'm going to go take it back and serge this edge to give it a clean finish, and then come back and press it one more time on the outside edge. There's a nice pressed edge, and there's one piece of the back skirt done. Go ahead and repeat for the other side. So now it's time to join our front and back, and just a side note, that seams great if you're in need of any kind of stabilizer for your seams. This works perfect and doesn't add any bulk, so just a side note there. You're going to take your skirt front and lay that down face up, and then take one of your back pieces with the center back in the middle here and line it up on one side and pin all the way down that outside side seam. And again, I'm going to be making sure I use that seams grate in the seam allowance here, just so mine doesn't stretch at all. So if you want to stabilize yours, this would be a good spot to do it. And then I'm going to also place the other side and pin all the way down the edge, and sew with your seam allowance and finish off that edge and give it a good press, just like you did on these pieces. And then we'll meet back again. And hooray! We have our skirt all sewn together, minus the center back seam. So that's it for the skirt day. Come back tomorrow and we will put our dress together. Yay! Well, what'd you think? Did you like those welt pockets as much as I did? I hope you found them super easy to install. And hey, isn't that look pretty much spot on to what that inspiration dress is? I know I'm going to be using this technique in the future when I want that same look. So make sure you come back tomorrow for day 4 of our sew along, when we put together all the pieces of our dress. So right now you should have the bodice sewn and the skirt sewn with those pockets in there, and you're excited to sew it all together tomorrow. I'll see you then. Until then, happy sewing.